Just sign my goddamn walgreens receipt, man. The fuck? Tripping, man.
You meet a lot of friendly people along the way with this. I came over and introduced myself because you were sitting by yourself, and I felt bad for you sitting by yourself. Yeah.
Let's see if
Miami is ghetto expensive. I'm older. I'm a.
Answer questions. Why you seem so upset, boss?
I don't answer questions.
Welcome back to the Lackluster channel. Last August, I released a video featuring Nate and his encounter with Officer Taha of the Westfield, New Jersey Police Department.
the goddamn Chanas!
Here is a condensed version of that report. For the update, skip ahead to the time on screen. In August of 2023, a viewer was driving down North Avenue East when an officer of the Westfield Police Department got behind him and initiated a traffic stop.
Can I get your license registration insurance,
With
please?
Jared.
What have I been pulled over for?
It's dirty.
Speeding, sir.
What speed was I going?
You're going 48.
48.
48, man.
Damn, that's some horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I record everything.
The rookie accuses Nate of driving 48 miles per hour in a 35 mile per hour zone. However, the first frame of the officer's dash cam shows the device used to calibrate a vehicle's speed. The first number shown is definitely a 3, but the second number is not clearly visible. Nevertheless, this frame proves that Nate was not locked in at anything over 39 miles per hour. Nate also has a dash cam that records his speeds using GPS. He has supplied me with the footage of his driving prior to the traffic stop, and at no time were his speeds above the legal limit. The rear camera shows the same speeds, but this angle is more damning to the rookie's baseless and unlawful traffic stop. It shows an absence of another vehicle behind Nate for more than a minute, until at the last moment, Officer Taha appears in his cruiser, rapidly closing the vast difference between the vehicles, making it painfully clear that the officer was the only one on scene that violated the law. This is likely because, just a mile earlier, Nate raised a middle finger to the officer as he passed him going the opposite direction, and even at that time, his speeds were well below the posted speed limit.
Are you gonna open this, boss? Can you give it to me?
I can. I'm only required to present it to you, and I have presented it.
Okay. All right. So, you're just gonna do this, or are you gonna just give it to me?
The law says I just have to present it to you. I have
Okay, yeah, but
I
can you
presented it.
open?
I can.
So this is what we're gonna do. We're just gonna play games.
For my safety, yes.
Your safety.
For my safety.
So you don't want to hand me your license?
I have presented it to you. Legally, that's all I'm required to do.
Okay. All right. Okay. Why you seem so upset, boss?
I don't answer questions.
All right.
The rookie writes down Nate's information. He is again wise to refuse to answer the officer's inquiries. Not only is it his right, but questions like, are we playing games?
We're just gonna play games.
Why do you seem so upset?
Why you seem so upset, boss?
And
Reason have you been, all right?
all apply subtle or indirect methods to
Mitty!
hostility while maintaining plausible deniability and appearing innocent on the surface. When in fact,
I am going to be
none
playing
of
the
the
Karen Reed
questions
trial when I
need
get to work.
accommodate
I might
or
play some of it here
assist
after
regarding their fraudulent
Lackey.
citation. When someone uses provoking questions that seem harmless but are clearly intended to provoke or antagonize, it's a form of passive-aggressive communication. The goal is to create a reaction or frustration in the other person without openly admitting to doing so. Unable to elicit a response from Nate, the officer retreats to his cruiser to learn how to write an incredibly sloppy ticket.
What was his name?
Nathan.
Officer Picciano finds Nate familiar, but his only citation history is with the agency in the next city over.
Do you have any ticket history?
He likely recalls the first time Nate appeared on this channel, when a Cranford officer pulled Nate over for exercising his First Amendment rights and was issued a citation for a window obstruction.
You go by and it looks like you need assistance.
That officer was caught lying in court.
Like sticking his middle finger up at me for like an extended period of time, as if he was like begging me to like stop him. I don't know if it's everything, but it was a video of me on YouTube.
And the citation was thrown out by a judge, but somehow still appears in the officer's database. Those videos will be linked below, but for now, as Officer Taha tries to figure out how to issue a citation, Officer Picciano asks for more of Nate's information.
What's going on tonight, bud? What was your name?
What?
What was your name?
You got my ID, didn't you?
No, I don't think you told me. What was his name?
Nathan.
I think we've done this one.
Well, he didn't take it. You wrote down all my information, right?
I'm trying to read his handwriting. Nathan?
That'd be correct.
Nathan, alright.
You said I was lying?
Yeah.
Is the radar gonna lie too?
Funny he should mention it. When Nate reached out to me, I recommended that he request the radar machine's logs and calibration certificates, and one of the documents that rookie officer Taha submitted, directly related to this traffic stop, says that the radar equipment wasn't even used.
What's his issue? Like, I don't understand why he's being so rude.
He looks familiar, but
When we refer to the dash cam footage once again, we can see that before, during, and after that intersection, Nate was traveling nearly 10 miles under the posted speed limit. This intersection is also where Nate flipped off Officer Taha. 20 minutes later, Nate is given his citation.
Yes, sir. I'm going to be issuing you a summons for careless. All the information's on the ticket. It's $88. If you just pay it online, you can get careless. You're driving in a careless manner. I observed you driving 48 and 35, sir, and I perceive that as careless, okay? This is your ticket, sir. You can, this is what I'm giving you, okay? Give me a little bit break on the speed. I don't know what's the issue. You know, you seem to be very agitated, but, do you have any more questions for me, sir? All right, so you have a good night, okay? Have a good one. Hold on.
Officer Taha claims to have given Nate a break by citing him for careless driving.
Careless is
instead of
worse than speeding.
But when we take a close look at the ticket, the first thing we notice is that the officer marked Nate down as careless driving, likely to endanger person or property, though the dashcam footage proves otherwise. During the stop, Officer Taha verbalized his speed at 48 multiple times, though that is not observed in the dashcam either. But in the notes on the ticket, the officer marked down 49 miles per hour, which would be 14 miles per hour over the posted limit and worth 2 points towards his record. At 50 miles per hour, it would have jumped to 4. On the other hand, careless driving is cited based on purely subjective reasoning rather than observable fact, and is thus easier to argue and lie about in court. It is also worth 2 points and matches the maximum fine of speeding. No brake spotted there.
A little bit break on the speed. I don't know what's the issue.
But perhaps the brake Officer Taha was referring to was marking on Nate's permanent record that he was carelessly driving a commercial vehicle while carrying hazardous materials in his 2006 Honda, all in retaliation for flipping off the officer. Nate appeared in court a total of 5 times to resolve this incident, as prosecutor Howard Eganberg didn't see fit to dismiss the case. A month after the incident, in September, Nate attended his first hearing where the prosecutor requested discovery. Nate's motion to dismiss was rejected to allow the state more time to provide their discovery to Nate. As it turns out, they had no evidence of any radar or LiDAR, and at that time, Nate submitted the body cam footage to the prosecutor. A month later, in October, the prosecutor requested a second delay, claiming that the clerk never forwarded Nate's discovery to the prosecutor's office. Then, in November, a third delay was requested because the prosecutor, quote, got the email, but the record clerk...
All right, I'm going to say, I actually want to watch the rest of this, so I'm just going to put you guys on scanner while I clean the windshield and grab a coffee or a tea. Where is this? Okay. I'll be right back. Got bugs on the windshield.
For dispatch back in Trail 12. Okay.
Like a camper. They're using that as like a camper. It's like a work truck, but they're using it for like a camper. It's good. And this shit in. Hey, Matt.
Didn't put Nate's name on it. During that hearing, the judge asked Nate if another extension was okay, and he informed the court of his right to a speedy trial, which is 180 days in New Jersey. Because of that time limit, the trial was set for mid-January. But when January came around, the prosecutor offered Nate a plea deal. Smelling the desperation, Nate told him that he would rather see him try to convince a judge that he was speeding with no radar evidence, and the trial was postponed once again for March. In March, the trial actually took place in person, and Officer Taha even showed up, testifying that the multiple errors on his citations, such as the failure to mark down that he used radar to determine Nate's speed. He claims that he did use the radar, but he just forgot to write it down, but at the same time failed to come with any proof that radar was actually used. The prosecutor focused mostly on the fact that Nate didn't roll down his window or hand over his documents, rather than on the alleged offense. He also tried to enter that the alleged infraction occurred in a 25-mile-per-hour zone rather than in a 35-mile-per-hour zone, but that was easily defeated when Nate moved his dashcam into evidence. This showed that the GPS coordinates and speeds were not the same as what the officer testified to, and confirmed the speed limit with the documented location of the false allegations. The prosecutor complained about the video after the judge viewed it and tried to suggest that the GPS coordinates were inaccurate, but because he had no timely objections and the judge had already viewed the video, it was considered by the court. And after hearing the state's weak arguments and listening to Taha make a fool of himself, the judge claimed that he couldn't make his decision and scheduled Nate to come back a 6th time to hear his verdict.
Jesus.
Of course, for no good reason. Court recordings are still unlawful in some areas, but I have an almost word-for-word transcript of the final hearing, and with a little help from AI, here is what took our most honorable law enforcement, prosecutor, and court 8 months to determine.
This is the matter of Nate. It's for careless driving. Defendant entered in a non-guilty plea August 9th, 2023 online, and then we had an in-person trial on March the 19th, 2024. In this matter, we had the officer testify regarding a stationary radar regarding the careless driving allegation. In that, the officer testified that he followed the vehicle after observing it, and testified that based on his radar he stopped the vehicle and stated under oath that he was observed to be traveling at 48 miles an hour in a 25-mile-an-hour zone. He requested documents, and he issued a careless driving summons which was within the officer's discretion due to the excessive speed. The radar unit was tested by the officer. The officer indicated he was certified and trained on radar use. The defendant then provided a video and asked for the video to be moved into evidence. There was no timely objection from the prosecutor, so I reviewed the video. When I observed the video had GPS markings with the time, date, and showed mile per hour as well. Based upon the GPS coordinates as well as my own personal observations, the video purported to indicate that the defendant was not traveling in violation of the speed limit. In this case, the state has the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. The defendant is presumed to be innocent of the charge unless each and every element of defense is proven beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah, nice
The
Bronco.
defendant must be not guilty if there is any reasonable doubt. The burden of proof rests upon the state and never shifts to the defendant. Defendant has no obligation or duty to prove his or her innocence, nor to offer any proof relating to innocence. Reasonable doubt is an honest and reasonable uncertainty in the trier of fact's mind. The trier of facts is me in this case, in this court, about the guilt of the defendant after having given full and impartial consideration of all the evidence. It may arise from the evidence itself, or a lack of
there's a lot of those around here.
Proof beyond reasonable doubt is proof that leaves the trier firmly convinced of the defendant's guilt. It can also provide doubt.
It's Jeep territory,
In
so
determining whether the state has met its burden, the trier is
Stellantis.
called upon to determine credibility of the evidence. In this case, we have the witness's testimony, and in determining the credibility of that evidence, the trier of fact may consider many things, such as how good or accurate the evidence is, whether there are any contradictions or changes, whether the evidence has any inconsistency or any discrepancy, the extent to which it's corroborated, contradicted, or discredited by other evidence, the reasonableness of the evidence, and the quality of the evidence. Any motives, prejudice, or biases with respect to reviewing the evidence and the credibility thereof. Common sense should be used in evaluating the evidence. If the evidence does not make sense, then I have the right
Oh,
to
yeah,
reject
for
the
sure.
evidence. On the other hand, if the evidence seems reasonable and logical, I have the right to accept it and give it
they're
credibility.
nice, but no, I'm not paying that.
I've had the opportunity to review the evidence, in particular, the officer's testimony. I've also looked at the video, and I've had the opportunity to observe its credibility. It's not an easy decision in this case,
How
because
is it
we
not?
have the officer's testimony, and then we have the video. I'm familiar with these type of videos. They're fairly common in the marketplace, and I have no reason to question the GPS markings. Because the time and the miles per hour are on the bottom of the video, I find the video to be credible. That doesn't mean I find the officer to be not credible. I find that he did seem to do everything right under the circumstances.
What?
However, the question here, in the standard of legal review, is whether there's reasonable doubt, and I
Wow.
have to find the defendant guilty, beyond a reasonable doubt, if I find him guilty at all. I find that there is reasonable doubt. A little bit of doubt, but there is doubt because I find the video to be persuasive. So as a result of that, I'm finding the defendant not guilty. That being said, however, there was some discussion in this trial with respect to the defendant making an obscene gesture of contempt to the officer. I think it would be irresponsible for me not to admonish such actions.
What?
This allegation of contempt is offensive.
This fucking judge is a piece of
I mean,
shit, man.
Police officers serve a very vital role. They're first offenders, first responders. They're the first to arrive at scenes of emergencies from accidents and crimes. They put their lives on the line. They maintain order and investigate dangerous situations. Their presence provides a sense of security and
No, it
assurance
doesn't.
during times of crisis. They work long hours, unpredictable hours. They face stress and danger, all in the name of keeping our communities safe. So I think we should all take a moment to express gratitude. And frankly, any offensive gesture of contempt is entirely unacceptable to me. But that's my opinion. I've made my ruling for this matter, and we can move on. Anybody here for this case is free to leave.
Not guilty. No shit. The Westfield police initially posted a statement about the incident on their Facebook page and reached out to Nate about the incident, but despite the promise that appropriate action would be taken, they never made contact with Nate again or mentioned the encounter publicly after that. Taha appears to still be employed with the town despite the glaring evidence suggesting his betrayal of Nate and the US Constitution. But as always, I'm more curious to know what you think. Is this a moment that should make Americans proud of
The
their
judge is a
judge?
shitbag.
Or is it blatant and obvious corruption that should have included Taha's name on the Brady list? Let me know in the comments down below. It's possible that this story is not over, and if Nate pursues civil action, I will be sure to let you know.
Yeah, take it out of that fucking judge's hands. Put it in a federal judge's hands. What a piece of shit, man. I'm sure Lackey's people are gonna be dumping all over that Facebook page, so. What do we got? Ay, ay, ay. Well, that judge was just giving his personal opinion, so it's hard to really do anything against the judge. But it was not fucking necessary. Okay, yeah, you're a bootlicker, judge. You're corrupt and you work hand in hand with the cops. But after to do it again, if he was to do it again, he would have refused the video. So anyone else behind this poor guy is not going to be able to have their video played, their dash cam video played. Well, he made the decision. I mean, he found him not guilty, but he had to add that bullshit. So. Where's the Karen Reed stuff? Dude. Oh, it's the other paramedic on the stand.
How the patient was found and what brought
Yeah, Bow's live, I know. I was in there already.
As much information as
He's just, he's watching people on the outside. I'm going to watch the inside.
Who has knowledge of the event. So as we approach the scene, begin to talk to one of the females.
All the legal, the big time legal
Why are they there?
people that watch all these trials, they're saying that the
what
defense lawyer is killing it. He's doing a great job. It doesn't mean that she's gonna be found innocent, but he is destroying the prosecution's case, though.
Okay.
That was Miss Reed.
And that's what I will play whenever I get to the office too. I'll hop into Bow once in a while during pauses and stuff.
Most personally affected by it, so we figured she'd have the most.
Surprised he's not out there. The weather's pretty nice today. He must have just not got up early enough. He started streaming 2 hours ago, so usually he only goes for a couple hours on the desktop.
Obviously upset, so personally related to or had a relationship with the person.
I think this is the senior paramedic. I don't know why the judge called it the way she did. last day, literally, that he was like right in the middle of fucking direct exam, and it was still pretty early. I think the judge got a text or something and was like, had to go.
She was attempting to do CPR, but due to their erratic behavior, she was running back and forth between the other female on scene and the body, back and forth, trying to press on his chest, wake him up, talk to him.
Hello?
Yeah, hi. I'm interested in working for you. Somebody said I need to set up an appointment.
That will be one of the. Have you worked with Impact before?
Do you have branches in Medina or Ohio, I should say?
Yeah, well, yeah, in the Toledo area, over in Cleveland.
I may have worked for you like a decade ago in Cleveland, but
okay, well,
you sound familiar, but I'm not sure.
No, I haven't been in Cleveland. But in our Cleveland office didn't open 10 years ago, so yeah. Either way, the best thing probably to do is just to go to our website and then apply initially, and then I'll reach out to you.
Okay.
Your name's Ryan?
Yeah.
All right, I got you on the caller ID. All right, go ahead. It's IES Corp. It's IESCORP.net.
Okay.
All right, go ahead and pop that in. Do that application. What area do you live in?
I just kind of moved here about a month ago. I'm in Monroe proper.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we got some work. So yeah, go ahead and do that, and then I'm gonna watch for it to pop up with your name, and I'll reach out to you. Okay.
All right, sounds good.
And we'll go to the next step.
All right, sounds good.
Yep. Bye.
Just to know that.
As far as conversation.
So do you have any information? How are they here? Tried to get.
I'm not going to dox last name.
From her at that time.
What it could have been.
So the only response that I was personally given was just I hit him. Oh my God, I hit him. So she was within 2 feet of me, but very loud. Any type of follow-up questioning, did you hit him with your hand? Did you kick him? What happened? She just repeated the phrase over and over again, I hit him. This was as we're bringing equipment over to the patient. The interventions are going to be started basically by whoever gets over to the scene first. I'm trying to gather information as a lead paramedic to try and coordinate interventions and to kind of holistically be the team leader in that situation. Transport the patient. So it was on approach to the patient, probably halfway between the ambulance and the patient.
With regards to that treatment, what was the steps?
Yes, if need be.
Thank you. So we try and document through our flowchart of all of the interventions that we're doing. So CPR is obviously going to be our first priority. CPR is initiated, unchanged but successful in the actual intervention itself, no complications. We do our ALS assessment that we talked about of any further indications of this is not a viable arrest. We determined it was a viable arrest and we move on. And we're going to start, we refer to it as a bag valve mask, 15 liters per minute on oxygen. The patient's not breathing on their own, so we're trying to assist ventilating that with high flow oxygen as well. And Easy IO, which is a needle we put into the bone of the tibia of the patient. That was on the right tibia was the first one we put in. We're going to be putting in warm fluid. We have a warmer in the bag to be able to bring up the core temperature Then we start with epinephrine, 1 milligram through that IO. Yep.
IO means interosseous needle. It's a needle right into the bone.
So we have two different methods we can do. We have a drill, a power drill that drills through the outer layer of the bone into the capillary area of the bone, the soft but spongy material. So we drill through that, or we can do it by hand if that fails. So that medication will improve, it's a vasoconstrictor. It'll cause the vasculature to constrict, so it'll improve the quality or effectiveness on the cardiac muscle, cardiac vasculature, and the cerebral area. So it's going to be serial every 3 to 5 minutes during the cardiac arrest to try and bring them over to the hospital, so it continues that entire time unless there's a rhythm change or that can change our algorithm how we approach the patient. If there's a rhythm regain or return of spontaneous circulation. So I have epinephrine at 620, 625, 630, 635, 640, 645.
No, that's for a straight cardiac arrest. You're not going to be conscious and in cardiac arrest. So.
Dependent on transport time. So first, we're at patient side at 6:15. Transport 6:27. So best estimation would have been inside the ambulance at that point. After the first round. So first round of epinephrine. After that, we would drop in what's called an OPA. That would be to push the tongue out of the way, open up the airway to improve our bag valve mass, so it has an open way to get the oxygen into the lungs. We begin external warming, stripping the patient, getting the heat turned up in the back of the ambulance. We would then switch over from manual CPR done by hand to a mechanical CPR device to ensure adequate, consistent CPR compressions of the chest. It was a Lucas device. Put that on the patient. And then we continue with another round of epi. Patient's starting to warm up this time, so we would do suction at that point to try and suction fluid out of the airway to improve ventilation efforts. Another round of epi is done. We have another suction, this time through a deep suction via the endotracheal tube. Sorry, at 6:22 after warming, we intubate the patient. We have a 7.5 tube paced at 27 centimeters, and then verified through various means, through chest rise, auscultation, waveform, and tidal CO2. So we had complications listed as patient vomiting, aspirating. Suction was then done with a rigid tip suction device. After successful intubation, we then suctioned via French tube through the airway established. Jump back up to 6:31. Another IO line was established on the opposite tibia on the left side. And then another 3 rounds of epi, and then arrival at the hospital. At destination was 6:45. Good Samaritan Medical Center. Yeah, asystole is going to be a cardiac rhythm.
Well, maybe long crime has
No,
better. I
like,
can't hear the
electric
fucking
heart
lawyer
is
at all.
Referred to flatline.
There it is.
Basically, they act
loud.
as an assistant to hand equipment, place things in strategic areas around, so we can actually work without having to go get those physical things ourselves.
Now, as far as indicated removal of his clothing was vehicle, correct?
Yes.
What was it about?
Yeah, let's slow down to less than the speed limit, asshat.
So
Every
removal of
fucking
clothing is
morning,
actually
man,
pretty
on this
standard for
road.
any cardiac arrests, any traumatic injuries. We're basically trying to get further clues, because this is all happening very quickly. So we're trying to get more evidence of why are they here. We're looking for extremity injuries, crush injuries, bruising, anything that we could document, that we could pass on to the emergency room staff and doctors. So we would strip most patients.
And as far as moving balls, personally, as far as sort of cutting the clothing.
Yes. Yes.
And on the removal of the clothing, what if anything sort of as to condition of clothing, extra clothing?
Condition seems pretty well intact, but just wet and cold.
And what if any relationship with the way the cold clothing happens with any of the diagnoses that you run into?
It would really just be the exposure to the weather would be our biggest trigger off of that, or if you had protruding injuries through clothing, complications, things like that. The clothing was intact, but we knew it was wet, it was cold. So as we strip things off of him, we can see underneath basically if there are any not every fracture breaks through this, not everything causes obvious things, obvious signs. So as we strip the patient, we can begin to further assess.
Take back for a second to outside of the name.
Yep.
What if anything specifically were you able to observe in reference to injuries?
Injuries are pretty tough to see outside of the ambulance, just due to the weather, due to the lighting. We have seen lighting on the ambulance as well, but
Let me ask you, as far as what was any difference in the lighting of the ambulance versus
so he was still out in the weather at that point, so bleeding wasn't really obvious at that point. As soon as we get him into the back of the ambulance, then we start noticing hemorrhage from different areas of his body.
And when you say hemorrhage from different areas, which areas specifically?
So mostly from his mouth, his eyes, nose.
JC.
Just to be clear for the record, when you use the term hemorrhage based on your training experience, what do you understand?
Bleeding, external bleeding.
You mentioned that there was some suctioning of the fluids, is that correct?
Correct.
And what if anything specifically was suctioned from the fluids?
Suction from the airway was mostly blood, sputum.
And as far as how much, what if anything you have sort of measure how much blood is suctioned?
So we have a canister that has marks of milliliters, so we determine as we're suctioning how much is in that container at different times.
And about how much based on that was suctioned?
So the initial suctioning with the rigid-tip was about 150 milliliters.
Wow, that's a lot.
And subsequently, so that would have been...
It's because he was getting CPR without being intubated at first, and he was getting air blown into his stomach. That makes you throw up.
With that soft tip through the intubation tube,
yeah,
would have been another 50 milliliters of fluid.
Yeah.
Now, with reference to, you mentioned some observations in this
What's up?
So you mentioned some observations you made earlier to that.
Yes.
What were them?
So that would have been redness of the skin on the posterior of the body.
What if any significance did that have to use as far as your observation?
Nice.
So redness from the skin, if it's general across the body, can mean certain things. If it's just a particular area, and due to the fact that it was cold outside, that would have been the initial stages of frostbite or exposure to cold.
And as far as the remainder of this routine's body, what if any other observations that you make, which areas you make observations?
So, for as far as the cold,
Callahan's doing a vertical stream. That's funny.
The most exterior parts. Extreme cold exposure can lead to frost snap and frostbite in different areas. The first affected areas are going to be your fingers, your ears, your nose, your toes, that type of. So that was a cold, waxy, pale, stark white substance, basically, or condition of the skin.
Oh, great.
On each of those areas.
I get behind haulers constantly, man, along here.
Now,
It's not a gravel hauler, though. It's a garbage dumpster.
Yes. Yes.
And beyond that, what if any
Please go left. Please go left.
So his eyes were pretty well swollen. We were trying to clear areas of blood to figure out if there were any contusions around the head. I believe there was a contusion on his forehead. Also had some markings on his extremities as well.
And just as far as your understanding based on your training experience, when you use the word, what do you understand?
Bruising.
And before we get to the extremities, what if any observations you make as far as his abdomen?
Abdomen we noted as significant as distension or swelling of the belly.
Yeah, because you filled his belly full of air with the back valve mask.
It's another of our detailed assessments. We go through the body in a more detailed way to try and find more clues that we can pass on for the assessment. Distension in the belly could be due to trauma or bloating. It could be, those are usually our biggest triggers for distension.
Bullshit. This guy's covering up the fact that they filled his belly full of air.
What, if anything, did you observe as far as increased?
They did ineffectual back valve mask.
So we had the cold, rigid fingers.
That's why he was throwing up, or that's why he was, yeah, oh
feet,
my God.
And we had multiple dry blood lacerations to the right arm.
Recall specifically where on this routine's right arm?
Would have been his upper arm.
You mentioned drying, is that correct?
Yeah, I take this once in a while when it looks like there's too much traffic on the interstate, the main interstate that I take, 75.
Being dry blood, exactly. What, if anything,
Got some nice leaves going on now too. Everything's big, budded up and blooming.
So we had active bleeding from other areas in the body. So the fact that it had already stopped and clotted, I would assume that would have been several hours before the incident that led him to be there, but I would guess earlier in the evening.
I really want to hear this cross-exam. This guy's been on the stand a long time.
Now, as far as the history is concerned, your attempts on scene, and then what, if any, attempts were made subsequently in the ambulance to obtain any sort of history of how this was in there, or what, if anything, caused the injuries to occur?
Once we get the patient into the ambulance, there was no family, no bystanders in the back of the ambulance, so then it's going to be solely based on physical assessment.
And within sort of a team of firefighters that you had, with anyone to direct to try and obtain that information while you went back?
So that would have been Katie McLaughlin.
And what did you ask Ms. McLaughlin?
So Katie was one of our senior paramedics at the time. So we had enough skilled hands working on the patient at that time. So to direct her, I wasn't able to get as much information.
He filled his belly full of fucking air. That's not very skilled.
To run the cardiac arrest. So I directed Miss Reed over to Katie to try and gather more information.
Maybe.
As to
it's Thursday
why
night.
They were there.
It's possible.
If you could get any more information about who he was, events leading to the injury, how long he was down for, any type of information, and then moved on to the patient at that point.
And so Firefighter McLaughlin is having this conversation outside of the ambulance, is that correct?
That's correct.
This is going on while you're inside the ambulance, actively treating this road.
It was a very quick process. So I'd start the conversation, wasn't productive, wasn't moving forward, moved her over to firefighter McLaughlin, continued on to the patient, and then started treatment, moved the patient in, and then Katie came into the back of the ambulance to help. So it was a very quick process.
And nobody had a body cam on in this scene. Isn't it funny?
Stroke's eyes and concerns. What, if any, observations?
The only recording they have is a dash cam.
So both eyes were swollen and bleeding.
What, if any, observations were you able to make of?
I'm sorry, what? Pupils. So I've documented as 4 millimeters and non-reactive.
What, if any, significance of those observations as far as
Means he's dead.
So we're looking for equality between the two. So signs of bleeding can be demonstrated by unequal pupils, or if they were restricted, could lead us to believe it was as a result of an opioid interaction. But we're looking at whether they react to light as well. If there's brain activity, if there's still something,
because he was dead,
causing the body to react,
guys,
you'll have some type of pupillary response. So we shine light, there was no response, so it was fixed and at 4 millimeters.
The reason they fucking did the interosseous needles too is because his hands were fucking frozen.
That's right.
It's hard to put an IV in a frozen fucking arm.
So back to the ambulance and transport, and firefighter Kelly, firefighter Nuttall, and myself.
And so if anyone was driving the ambulance between Fairview and Richmond?
So that'll be determined by basically just positioning on the engine. So the step driver for that position would then drive as the detailed person over to the ambulance. That was firefighter McLaughlin.
Now, during the transport from Fairview to Good Samaritan, what, if anything, are you, the other firefighters in the back of the ambulance doing as far as continuing duties?
So we started transport at 6:27. So between 6:27 and 6:45, treatments included epinephrine, additional suctioning, managing the airway, placing another intraosseous line, and then 3 additional rounds
13-minute drive.
Epinephrine, while the mechanical CPR is continuing CPR.
And during the course of the transport, what, if any, changes in Mr. O'Keefe's status as far as the cardiac arrest or breathing occurs during the transport?
No changes.
No, because he was dead. You guys shouldn't have fucking coded him. Should have left his body there and let real crime scene look at it.
Sort of typical transport time?
Not normally. Due to the weather, it was pretty
But
slow
I get it.
driving. Even though the ambulance is a smaller vehicle than the engine.
They're not dead unless they're warm and dead.
Transport compared to normal.
During the course of the transport, what, if any, communication are you having with this family in regards to Mr. O'Keefe and his eventual life?
Every medical that goes on, we try to give the hospital staff a heads up, basically, of what's coming in. We'll have different alerts that we would give them, whether it's cardiac arrest, a stroke, a STEMI, to have certain appropriate teams come in and be ready, whether it's a trauma alert. There's different specialties within the hospital that'll treat those different particular cases. So we would call them 5 to 10 minutes prior to give that team time to get down into the emergency room to get ready to work.
When you arrived at this area, who, if anyone, was met by, and sort of what happened with regard to Mr. O'Keefe?
So we're continuing interventions from the ambulance through the bay into their code room. We're then met by registration, a registered nurse, and the doctor that took care of the patient, as well as a team of other assistants and CNAs.
And where do you sort of physically go with Mr. O'Keefe, or how does that work?
Yep, so that's referred to as a transfer of care. So there's different people, like I said, it's a team base where different people are in charge of different things. You'll have the nurse in charge that's in charge of documenting our interventions that have been done so far, time of down, the patient was down, and then she starts documenting all the different interventions that were done by the hospital staff as well. You also give a report to the doctor, who's then taking over as lead for the cardiac arrest. They're going to start issuing orders for the patient and treatment. And then you have registration that will get the information to register the patient that they can tie all of their interventions to.
During that sort of process of exchanging information, things of that nature, what, if anything, did you learn in regards to core body temperature?
So to add that assessment, I believe it was he had core body temperature of 80 degrees.
80. Yeah, he was dead. Dead. There was no recovering 80. Core body of 80.
Typical core body temperature.
28 degrees below
in the
normal.
90s, where body temperature being in the at 80, the rectal temp, core temp, is going to be extreme hypothermia.
That's his core. That's not his extremities. So he'd been there all fucking night. She didn't do it. Karen didn't do it. He got beat up in front of that house, and they drug him out there. The injuries do not correlate with somebody hitting him with their car.
So, as we talked about before, with the hypothermia and the extreme cold, they're going to work that for an extended period of time. Most cardiac arrests, I will try and hang out by the patient or in the area. As new staff come through, different things are found. The doctors and nurses might have follow-up questions. So I try to stay available as an asset that they can bounce those questions off, at least for 10 or 15 minutes afterwards. Make sure the whole process is completely transferred from all the interested parties.
During that course of time, what have been things you learned as sort of eventual status?
We didn't learn anything while we were at the hospital.
Yeah, I got about 10 more minutes before I got to be before I'm at the office.
Quarters to decon the ambulance and to replenish all the equipment that we had used, get back in service, and move on with the shift.
At some point during the course of the shift, you got the case to go back with this.
Me personally, no. It would have been for an additional medical call if there was any calls for service afterwards.
Did you recall whether or not you went back to this matter for additional medical calls or anything like that?
I don't recall.
Direct your attention to the screens over there. This film in fact, please have exhibit number 9. So direct your attention to what's been previously marked as exhibit number 9, and recognize what's in that photograph.
Yeah, well, the trial, actually, yeah. Karen Reed trial.
If I can have exhibit number. If I can have exhibit number.
I'll put it on. I'm gonna play this on my desktop stream. I know what you mean. I know. I'm just fucking with you, man.
Again, sir, what's up on the screen? Recognize what that is.
I see blood, snow.
How do you know it's blood?
Area.
And lastly, just if I can have exhibit number 18.
Jesus, come on, dude. I'm just gonna take this other route. This guy's gonna be clunking slow.
Yes.
Go this way.
Yes.
So I'm going to hand the razor corner. So, firefighter Fulani, within this photograph on the screen is exhibit 18. Do you see the area in which you observe the sort of line on the graph?
Yes.
And using that laser pointer, could you direct the jury's attention to where this photograph to observe this?
Initially,
well, Bao, I think Bao's watching that. Midwest just went live too in vertical. He's trying that out.
Thank you.
I'm gonna be popping in all of them.
Nothing further.
Bowser.
At this time.
Oh, okay. Cross exam.
Thank you.
Time to light him up. Man.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to start sort of at the beginning. When you first arrived at the location, you indicated that you could, in fact, see the body from your perspective, correct?
I could see a body.
And I think you indicated the shape of the body.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell if it was female or male,
No.
but obviously looked like a human figure.
Yes.
Okay. That drew your attention to the left side of the ambulance as you were approaching, correct?
Yes.
And you're sitting on the right side, which means you're sort of the furthest away from that figure from the perspective of the ambulance.
And the ambulance, yes.
And you had no problem making out that figure in the snow.
So the figure in the snow, we had a good distance between the ambulance and the engine, so yes.
Okay. And you indicated that the figure in the snow was on top of the snow, if you will, with some snow accumulating up the body of the individual.
Yes.
But he was not covered in snow.
No.
There wasn't like a mound of snow over this figure.
There were mounds of snow in the area, but not over the patient. Due to the wind, there were snow drifts in the area.
And his clothes were dark as compared to the white snow.
Yes.
I want to ask you a couple of quick questions about some of the last conversation you had with Mr. Lowry about the injuries. You did note that Mr. O'Keefe had a laceration over his right eye, correct?
Over his right eye?
Over his right
You
eye.
gone.
The contusion over the eye.
Who gone? Me?
Your definition of contusion is...
Bruising.
Was it also swollen?
There was swelling around the eyes and a little bit of contusion and bruising around.
About ended his stream. Yeah, it was a desktop stream. He usually doesn't do much more than 2 hours.
You don't remember that. What about his left eye?
There's a few people on the outside. I'm gonna pop between them, especially during the. I'll jump over to Tom CPU's stream too, since he's there. Bowser's not there. Bowser.
Due to the bleeding that was coming from the orifices, trying to clean the area and find exactly where it's from is sometimes difficult, so we can just say it was bleeding in that area.
Okay, so you can't define, as you sit here, you don't remember if it's bleeding from the nostril or from a laceration on the nose?
I believe it was the nostrils.
Okay. Are you saying that there was no laceration on the skin of the nose, or you just don't recall it?
On the top of the nose? No, I don't know.
I'm sorry.
On the top of the nose, I don't know.
You don't recall. With regard to his abdomen, you indicated that it was distended.
Yeah.
That's the term for swollen.
Yeah.
Get him on that.
You said that could be from trauma or it could be just bloated, correct?
Correct.
Did you notice any contusions on his abdomen?
No.
Any skin that was abraded?
No.
Or cut? No. So there's no bruising, no contusion, but there was a distension, correct?
Yes.
So there was no visible trauma to the abdomen.
Visible trauma doesn't really matter to internal trauma. It's not always indicative one way or the other.
So my question was, did you see any visible trauma on his abdomen?
No.
Okay. But you did note that it was bloated.
That it was distended.
Get him! God, you need a medical person on your fucking defense.
About, if I can shift gears, about the conversation that you indicated to Mr. Lowry that you had with Ms. Reed. You were also asked about that conversation at the grand jury. You testified, correct?
Correct.
You testified that as the lead paramedic, you were specifically trying to get as much information from my client, Ms. Reed, as you possibly could.
I hate it when significant medical facts are not pointed out.
You indicated.
As a paramedic, I've sat
you asked questions like.
In the witness stand before.
Correct. Correct. How did you get here?
And they grill you.
What happened?
Correct.
Is there any additional information you can give me about what happened?
Gunshots, stuff like that, murder trials.
So that was a conversation that you were personally engaged in with my client in order to gather as much data, if you will, about what you were dealing with, correct?
Correct.
But your focus was, when you first arrived, your focus is, I need to attend to the patient, correct?
That's correct.
Like, conversations notwithstanding, I need to deal with what's in front of me, which is an unconscious man in the snow.
Correct.
Dressed inappropriately.
Correct.
And possibly freezing to death.
Correct.
But you did say that you had enough of a conversation with Ms. Reed that she answered you and said something to the effect of, I hit him, oh my God, I hit him.
Correct.
So then you followed up on that conversation, correct?
As much as I could, yes.
As a matter of fact, you said that you asked her additional elaborating questions.
Correct.
Did you
10
hit him in the
years.
face? Or did you kick him?
5 in the Army, 5 out.
Okay. So that's a conversation that
And when I got out, I was a firefighter, paramedic.
You're talking to her, you're looking her in the eyes, she's looking you in the eyes, you're standing still, and you're attempting as best you can to converse with this woman so that you can gather as much information as you possibly can as you attend to the victim.
Correct.
You indicated that that conversation lasted.
My wife hates it. I'll critique the hell out of a medical scene in video or in movies and in shows. She's like, just stop. I'm like, look, it's bullshit.
Sustained. Ask her to give it.
Sure. Did you have, was your conversation in some way, in your mind, and when I use the word frustrated, I mean, it's just, you weren't getting the information that you were seeking, correct?
It wasn't productive.
Okay, better way to put it, I'll use your word. That conversation was unproductive enough that you then moved the conversation over to Ms. McLaughlin, correct?
Correct.
Firefighter McLaughlin. And once Firefighter McLaughlin engaged Ms.
It's always a subdural hematoma. The hematoma.
The patient was already being treated by the other.
All right, I'm going to get in there and try and get the stream up as fast as I can because I want to watch this. I'll see you guys in a bit. If you're going to come hang out, please do. Just drop a like in there if you don't want to hang out. I should be up by 10:30. Peace.